My dear friends, welcome to Rajashekhar classes on applied data science with Python. This is lecture number 460. In this lecture, we will try to understand retraining models periodically. So, there is a concept which is important in the real applications of machine learning called retraining models periodically. So, what happens is this. Let me walk you through an example. Imagine you are trying to predict stock prices for the next day so that you should decide whether you sell a stock or buy a stock. Let's assume you trained a model. Let's assume this is your data over time. Let's assume this is your time axis. Which one is time axis? This is my time axis. This is my data, isn't it? I have time axis as well as I have data, isn't it? This is data on D0, data on D1, data on D2, data on D10, isn't it? This is the, let's assume you took all the data from day 0 to, from day 11, day 10. You did all of your modeling, everything. Let's call this model M10. This model was built on day 10 using last 10 days data. Using on day 10, you build a model by using last 10 days data. Isn't it? That point is important. Suppose you productionized your model 10. Let me assume you productionized your model 10. Yes, so model 10 was in production on day 11. On day 11, your model was in production. It predicts which stock to buy, which stocks to sell. So it gives you some performance. For every model, there will be a performance metric. Let's assume we will predict sell or buy, isn't it? What is this one? This is two class classifier. Then you measure how accurate, what is the precision, what is the recall for your predictor, some performance metric. Let's assume when you deployed your model 10, it ran on, you are running that model 10 on day 11 data. So on day 11, your model 10 ran on the data of day 11. Let's say it has some performance metric. Let's say it is AUC. AUC is performance metric, isn't it? It's of AUC of, let me say like this. Yes. Let me assume on day 11, my model 10 AUC value is 0.8. On day 12, my model 10 AUC value is 0.81. On day 13, my model 10 AUC value is 0.6. Let's assume AUC is fall sharply to 0.6, isn't it? You ran it, your model 10, you ran it on day 11, day 12 and day 13 data. So you are running model 10 on each of these next days, that is day 11, day 12, day 13, day 11, day 12 and day 13. So it has performed well on day 11 and it is performed well. It is performed well on day 11 and I can say day 12. But when it comes to day 13, it performed terribly. Now that's a signal for you to say you should retrain your model using more recent data. Since your model is here, what is your model here? your model is M10. Since still you are using model 10 on day 13, you are using model 10 on day 13, even for day 14, instead of using model 10, you should actually build a model on day 13. Instead of using model 10, you can actually build a model on 13th day. Use more recent data to retrain your model, because your model 10 use only data till day 10. It did not see the data that is there on day 11, day 12 and day 13. Our model performance suddenly dropped, or it can slowly deteriorating. There are two cases there, then you should retrain a model. The big question here is retraining a model is simple. The big question here is how to determine if you have to retrain. If the cost of retraining is not a lot, then you just retrain it on regular basis. But if it is a lot, you should see if your model performance is dropping, then you should retrain a model. Second one is if the data set distribution itself changing. If the data set itself is changing, for example, maybe data from D7, D8, D9 and D10 has the different distribution as compared to, let's say, data on D13 and D14. If these two data sets are different, then of course a model that is trained on D7, D8, D9, D10 will not perform well on D13 and D14, because the data set itself has changed, and such data is called non-stationary data. Non-stationary data is a data which changes over time, which happens a lot in stock market because of the small change, may because of government financial policy, or oil prices rises suddenly, or gold prices is increased, or dollar becomes weak, or Indian rupee becomes strong. Because of so many external factors, your data will change. How will you determine that your data is changed from one period to other period? If the data is changing a lot, then you should retrain your model. Our third option is retraining regularly if the cost of the retraining is not a lot. Regularly means it may be for every hour, sometimes it could be every minute, sometimes it could be every week. So it depends on the problem and amount of the data available. This is also very important real world miscellaneous topic that we want to cover, because when we actually run or deploy the model in production, you have to take care of retraining models. Thank you very much.